My name is Edgar Ansaldúa, or probably most of you know me as Mexican Ed. Well, and yeah, also my job title changed during the course of this workshop. So, we're here to learn about the definition of personas, but that's not the only thing that we're here to learn. If that was it, only this slide would do. A persona, as defined in the New Oxford American Dictionary, is the aspect of someone's character that is presented to or perceived by others. And if we look at this from the perspective of the software, from the perspective of a software developer, what we have is that a persona is a general, yet specific and humanized representation of our users. But when I think about our users, I think that they are like oxygen to us. And most of you may think that it's because without them we wouldn't be able to breathe as a company, but that's not the reason. The reason is because we know they exist, but we haven't seen one. And this gets me to a couple of concepts that I want you to excerpt from this point onwards. We need to get good at getting our perceptions right, and we need to be empathetic with our users. A perception is the way that you, and only you, regard, interpret, and understand everything that happens around you. Empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And this is exactly how we're going to define personas from now on. But before I get too technical into concepts, I want to tell you a story, if you allow me to. You're supposed to allow me to because I have my slides for it. So, we have two friends. One is a drummer, and one is a normal guy or girl. So let's say to get started with the empathy thing, let's say that you are the normal guy or girl. Okay? So I want you to get into the shoes of that role. And when you have a drummer friend, you'll find that often, driven by the excitement that he has after learning a new song, he will come to you and say, "Hey man, I just learned a new song." And he will grab anything and start say, "Wait, I'm gonna show you." And he will start like, hopefully he will get a pair of these, and will start like, or something like that. And he will do that for around 3 minutes. It's annoying because during that period of time you will be struggling with the feeling that produced not to roll your eyes on him, because you know that you're going to hurt his feelings. Now, drummers, as opposed to whatever you might think, are very sensitive creatures. So, you don't want to hurt his feelings, so you will go through those 3 minutes and listen to whatever he has to perform or to show off his drumming. And after the song has finished, he will look at you with a big smile, and he's gonna ask, "Did you know what song I was playing?" And of course you didn't. And he will get upset, and you won't know why, because you didn't ask him to perform the song. He doesn't realize that he has tortured you for those 3 minutes, and as you can probably imagine, you know who the drummer guy was. It was me. Before, I used to be a drummer, and not a UX specialist or whatever. The UX guy, and with a story similar like this one, I got my heart broken many, many, many times. Now, if you don't believe me, I'm going to make this exercise, and I want all of you to be part of it. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna play a song. And when I finish playing the song, I want you to tell me which song it was. Now, it's a very popular song, and you might be able to recognize it. It's understandable if not, you don't know it. But there's a catch. This is only the drum track. So listen carefully, because well, you might be able to recognize it, especially since I know we have a couple of drummers here. So let's do this. So which song was it? Anyone? Oh, I should have learned better. I should have known better. But keeping this aside, this is a wonderful example of how cognition is constrained by perception through stimuli from previous experiences. If we put this exercise into the context of the story that I told you, where the drummer guy was playing to his friend, what he was listening when he was playing was all the instruments. He was literally listening to the most expensive drum kit available, and he was listening to the guitars and the vocals and the piano and the bass, and inside his head it was just amazing. But inside yours, or inside anybody else in that context, the only thing that you could listen was the drum track. And even we can assume that everybody here had a different concept on your heads. Like someone might have said, oh well, that sounds like obladi oblada, I don't know. And someone else could have said it's probably Gangnam Style or whatever. Like, everybody relates to something different depending on what their experiences are. And that's a problem. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play these same drums, but with the whole band. And I want you to listen carefully, because this time you might be able to recognize the song. So, hopefully most of you know what song that was. And even though you didn't before, our brain has enough information now to perceive the world, or at least the drum track, in a different way. If I play the drum track alone again, you will be able to say, Bohemian Rhapsody, like that. At least if you were listening, or if you knew the song. And what we have done here is take a concept of the abstract drumming pattern that I showed you before and take it to the realms of tangible land. Now everybody knows what was it. So, to take this a little bit further with examples, I want you to raise your hand whether each of the concepts that I gonna show in the screen are abstract or tangible. So raise your hand if you think that the Mona Lisa is tangible. All right. So when I said Mona Lisa, how many of you picture something like this? So I'd say it's somewhat tangible. So I put it here, and I'm gonna do that because there are some inconsistencies in the way we can remember the Mona Lisa. If I ask you to draw the Mona Lisa, you might be able to draw it with different amount of detail, let's say different backgrounds, different colors, different things, which put it somewhere in here, right? Now, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to think about the place where you grew up in. So, is that abstract or tangible? If you think that's tangible, please raise your hand. I would argue that the concept of home is a pretty tangible memory for all of us. We can relate to it very easily, and we can add a lot of detail about the smells, the sounds, the sights that you have within your home. I can even say that since I said the place that you grew up in, you might have imagined your parents sitting in their favorite place, or probably you running across the garden when you were a kid. So I put that right next to the tangible arrow on the tangible side, if you all agree with me. And if not, I don't have a plan, so you need to argue with me. And now let's talk about truth. How many of you think truth is a tangible concept? That's great, because I was expecting this answer. So, it's as abstract as it can get, because we all know what truth is, but if we are asked to define it, we will all have a different definition of it. So it's pretty abstract. And you might be wondering at this stage, what the hell is he talking about? I'm here to learn about software, or software development process. And that's exactly where I'm going. What I'm going to ask you now, I'm going to ask you to define our users. Where in the scale from abstract to tangible do you think they are? Tangible. So who thinks they're tangible, please raise your hand. I have a few hands. And I'm going to assume that given what I've said, some of you might have been in contact with the customer or with the user, because the customer and the user might be different. So, for you, they are tangible. But I'm going to ask you, if we want to picture the user, what's their average age? Those of you who raise your hand, can you make a statement like that, like this? Probably not. Now, if I ask you how many years of experience they have, or what they like to do while they're working, what is the part that they enjoy the most about doing what they do, are you able to answer? The answer might be probably not. And on top of things, those who raise their hands, I guess that they all have different perceptions of what the user is. And that's perfectly normal. I don't even know how the user looks like. I haven't seen a user in a picture, or a definition of a user. So for me, our users are still somewhat abstract. So now I want you what we have here is that when the users are abstract, for a company like ours, we have a problem, because we want to have a unified perception of what the users are. Because when we have a unified perception, it will allow us to be empathetic with them in a similar way and get them more productive and happier. As we get the perception of our users, as we will get the perception of our users from abstract to tangible. And the only way we can do this is by being honestly curious about who our users are, and ask ask and ask more questions. This is where the concept of persona gets into the picture. A persona is built around useful background information about your user. It takes the user from abstract to tangible in one single page. Once you know your users, your perception changes. You share that perception with everybody else. And then you will end up having a better decision making and a better problem solving approach for that persona. In the slide here, I have the attributes that we want to learn about our users to be able to make valid generalizations about them. But they can't contain anything. This is just a suggestion.